Welcome, everyone. My name is Dave Holman. I'm a member of the Greater Education Council of Connecticut. We have as our mission statement to facilitate, coordinate, and communicate a united statewide effort to educate, expose, and prevent the woke indoctrination and sexualization of all children in the education system of the state of Connecticut. Our thought is there are many groups around Connecticut fighting the various battles, but if we get together, we'll have a better chance of success. With the help of GCTV, we've been interviewing various patriots from around the state. We have one of them with us today. Her name is Sally Finck. She is the editor and founder of the Continental Tribune. She's my friend, and she's been very helpful to us here in Guilford. So welcome, Sally.
Thanks, Dave.
So how did you become a journalist?
A journalist? Well, I think it kind of began in February of 2022 when we had all of the COVID stuff going on, and there was a rally that I remember attending, and I just kind of had this light bulb moment as I was watching some other media coverage. And it was just kind of like, we need more media outlets in the state that are not, I would say, left-leaning. Yep. And so from there, I kind of tinkered around with doing some writing and decided to get my own, paper up and running. And it's been a learning curve, ever since. And like, I didn't go to school for journalism, so it's been reading some books and just taking I'm an introvert by nature, so getting on the phone is terrifying until you get used to it. But being a journalist is, it's a recent endeavor, but that's kind of how things evolved.
It's funny you say how it's terrifying getting on the phone with somebody you
really
don't
is.
know. Mm-hmm. I know. I was a salesman, and I was an inside salesman, and then I had the opportunity to become an outside salesman, and I had to make cold calls. And talk about being scary.
Scary, yep.
But after a while, it becomes fun.
It does. It really does. Yep.
So, did you have any background in media?
Well, my college background is in piano performance, so I think I had an idea of performing and kind of what goes on with maybe audio. But as far as media goes, probably the closest thing was about 6 or 7 years, or maybe it's been longer. But I took a course in user experience because I thought I wanted to do something besides music. So I got into a little bit of how users, or whether it's readers or viewers, like their impressions of things like fonts or shapes or groups, how information is grouped. But that's, probably the closest that I've come to like media.
Well, I had a come to Jesus moment too. I used to be a ditto head. I listened to Rush Limbaugh every day.
Okay.
And he used to say, well, you have to get involved. And
yes.
So
yes, you do.
That's probably what happened to you too.
Yeah, you just get to a point where I think it's, in some ways, a lot of people feel, especially in a state like Connecticut, where everything is pretty well pointed in one direction, you feel helpless. But then once you get going, other people start paying attention, and depending on, everybody kind of has a different niche and different, target audience, but it's encouraging just to have 2 to 3 people that are, like-minded and say, we notice these things that are happening.
So you have people contributing to you now from
yes.
all over the place.
Yeah.
And you're very open to printing their letters and different things.
Yes, yeah, publishing those, yeah.
Oh, we need places like this. Even here in Guilford, when I submit letters to the Guilford Courier,
yep.
You don't know if they're going to be published or when they're going to be published. They try to fact check things. I've been sending backup information with my letters now, and that's helped. That's helped.
Background information.
So
Yeah.
so do you fact check things when people send them to you?
Let's see. In some cases, the readers have done, seem to have done some research behind it. If I have other questions about the story, I will, try to pursue those. But yeah, if something seems like, maybe it's not as credible, because I think one of the interesting things about being in this field is that we are susceptible to our own narratives. And I know a couple of times I've seen, something like a photo that looks like it's legit, and so you just kind of latch onto it, and then you get to looking at it closer, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, a couple of details are off, but generally speaking, I mean, I look at what readers send. I'm assuming they've done some, fact checking, especially if there's a lot of statistics and basic facts with it. But yeah, I try to look at that.
So you're not from Connecticut originally?
No, I am from the Midwest, the great state of Missouri. If anyone's familiar with Senator Josh Hawley, that is Josh Hawley's state. We are
Do you know him?
No, I don't know. I mean, I know of him, but I haven't, contacted him directly. Like a lot of states, Missouri is not perfect. I was watching. I've been doing, more self-education just on economics and kind of the roots of these problems. And Missouri, it turns out, has like 2,300 different tax districts or something like that. It's just a mess. And I thought, anyway, but that's where I'm from. And,
I think you told me you're doing the
Yeah.
Hillsdale College courses, right?
I am. And Hillsdale's not paying me to endorse them or anything, but I would recommend, going through some of those. They have a video lecture series. So kind of tying it back into Guilford, what's happening here, you see the difference between what happened up to and after the Civil War, kind of the what we would say maybe old school Democrats, going up to 1965, and then some of those idea changes that really, we kind of know intuitively that we don't have a representative government, but this breaks down how it got from representation to more of like a body politic and then administration. So, and then after 1965, that's when you get these ideas that are, I think, laying the groundwork for the gender confusion, the race focus, all of that. It flows from the older progressive ideas, but it's nice to see them put more concisely to where you can actually understand them.
So
Yeah.
you skipped Constitution 101. And
No, I didn't skip the Constitution. I went through Constitution 101, and then I was kind of addicted to it, so I started Constitution 201, and I think I'm like 70% through that one. So anyway, but that's...
No, I attended a Hillsdale College event up in Suffield 5 or 6 months ago. And
I think Hillsdale has what do they have here? They have some kind of, is it the Blake?
Yes, it was at the Blake Center. Have you been there?
I have not, but that's on my bucket list.
Oh my God, it's an exact replica of Jefferson's.
I remember, it's supposed to be a replica of Jefferson's home, I think, or Monticello, something like that.
I remember going in there, they had this big picture, and they had all these guys from the Revolution, from Boston, and I was trying to name everybody, John Hancock.
Oh, yeah.
But it had Dr. Joseph Warren. That was the one I couldn't get.
Oh, okay.
It had Sam Adams and John Adams and Hancock. And then it had this other guy, but it ended up being Joseph Warren.
Okay.
Which is, I think Warren, Ohio is named after Joseph Warren.
Okay. I admit I am not familiar with that name, but I'll get there.
So I just want to read something here. This is on your website. You say, the Continental Tribune informs, engages, and inspires readers. Most of Connecticut legacy media is helping divide Connecticut into social, racial, and economic classes. These false divisions and fear distracts residents from the much deeper corruption Connecticut is suffering from. So, what types of stories have you been covering?
Have I been covering? Well, let's see. Most recently, I am focused on the Democrat registrar in Fairfield, who's actually been there for 10 years. So things like individuals that are maybe, things have been, I'm going to say, simmering under the surface, and then, but it doesn't get covered in most mainstream media.
What do you mean you're covering her? Things she's not doing, or things she's doing?
So it's a he.
He.
So his name is Matt Wagner, and he actually has a nickname. It's Teflon. Teflon Wagner. I think the Yankee Institute is actually writing on him as well. And so what's happened, like for instance with this, is that complaints have been made to the SEC and who else? Secretary of the State. And ultimately nothing happens with this guy. So I think I kind of focus on stories that may not get justice or, admonition, so to speak, but the best you can do is to bring the public's attention to it and say, this guy is, violating these election rules or whatever. So that's one thing. The other thing.
Well, let's not leave that for a minute. Yeah, I
Sure.
mean, do you know that, for instance, he's not taking people off the voting rolls and things like that?
Yes. So everyone in this case, like everyone in the Fairfield, or a lot of people in the Fairfield town hall, things like the human resources director, other voting registrars, the registrar secretary, who else? The town attorney, the first selectman, like all of these people have agreements with this guy, and so they document evidence. There've been a couple of police incidences, and just fishy things that have happened. Sometimes there's not a clear, maybe at the clearest time. I found one. It had to do with numbers. This lady that was running, there were. What is it, the 134th district. So long story short, the Democrat edged out the Republican by 10 votes. And so the Republican had been ahead by 113 votes. So 113.
So it triggered an automatic recount.
Yes, it triggered a recount. But there's something about that number, like you'll see it in the article. Like, I don't want to give it away, but it was just.
Oh, it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet.
Okay,
But it was like
okay.
winning the lottery when I saw that. I was like, anyway. But it's, digging into what, I don't know why Hearst doesn't, pick up on this more, or there have been articles in the Insider and Patch, like here and there, but nobody's like going after this guy. And I will mention there are other things about him besides the election violations. He's had like houses paid off, things that
he litters or.
No, no, I'm afraid it's far more serious than that. Far more serious, but it's just stuff that I find fascinating, because I'm like, wow, you wonder where or how they're doing what they're doing.
Well, are you familiar with Linda Sinkowitz?
I am.
And Fight Voter Fraud?
Yes.
Is she helping you with this? Have you guys shared notes?
I haven't talked to Linda about this particular one. I think it's because it has been. I don't know if her work would involve as much, digging on a particular person, or, like maybe election discrepancies in Fairfield, like just generally speaking, but not sure.
Well, I saw her at a Convention of States event in East Haddam, at the East Haddam Library a couple of months ago. She is unbelievable. She is like the authority on voter fraud for the whole country.
Voter fraud, wow.
She's got offices in all these battleground states. She's given testimony in Washington.
Databases, yeah.
I mean, I'm very, very impressed with her. But you might want to get together.
Maybe
with her.
she knows something about Fairfield. Maybe she'd be able to tell me if my numbers thing is accurate as far as that particular race goes. We'll see.
Yeah, what she told me was there's voter corruption in every single town in Connecticut.
Oh yes, yeah.
Every single town.
I'm sure that's not the only place. That things have got. Things happen. You look at Bridgeport, but that's a whole other can of worms.
So what other stories have you been working on?
Let's see. There is the 5 major cities have signed agreements with wireless carriers, and what a lot of people may not be aware of is that some of these, the small antenna that are supposed to help your cell phone signal and whatnot, there's been kind of a proliferation of those. And for some people, they have health sensitivities with these, wireless antenna. But it's kind of, it's one of probably a little bit like the town governments may, say something about it, but it's not going to make, the papers about oh, and by the way, they signed an agreement. These agreements, they don't for any kind of damage, that might occur to humans.
Health damage, you mean?
Yeah, health damage from, let's see, it's I think it's like electromagnetic, frequency. Some people are sensitive to them. They get headaches. They get all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And we are, homes are surprisingly wired and connected. We've got all kinds of devices. I was shocked at I think the average number of devices in a home was 60 or 70. I mean,
really?
Yeah. And you're talking more about the.
I mean, you're including refrigerators and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about smart appliances, sure, So, but that's one story where, again, the people, if they know something, they may not have a voice about it, and these town councils or mayors that just kind of sign on the line. And there was actually what was called a shot clock. That's their term for it, where there was only a certain amount of time for approval to put in, on whatever utility pole that they wanted maybe put an antenna here or there or whatever. And I forget exactly how that transpired, but
so these health problems are specific to this one type of antenna?
Yes, because these small cells in particular, from what I understand, they emit a very high, high pulse rate, and it's been documented in science journals that for some there's been organ damage, I don't think it's, I'm not sure how widespread, the health problems are, but I think the FCC, the last time they updated their safety requirements, I think it was 1998 or 1996, something like that.
Wow, a lot has happened since then.
A lot has happened since then, but in addition to just the health stuff, there's also privacy. It's law enforcement is maybe they're looking for a fugitive, and so what happens with I'm not sure if the small cells are a part of this. I was kind of trying to dig on it. But for the bigger towers, they will have big, they store data. Your phone's always pinging off a tower. And so as, if the FBI or whoever is, I forget what they call it, I want to say a data dump, something like that. So they're picking up all of this data that they don't need, but nobody knows where it goes, So...
It's amazing that they can sign off on these things without having some sort of public meeting about it, public hearings, gathering all the evidence before they do something like this.
Yeah, but that's, it's what I think more people need to know about,
So
this is happening in your backyard,
Yeah, it's like electric cars. I mean, I heard this doctor the other day saying that when you're inside an all-electric car, all these waves are bouncing back and forth, and
electric cars too. Yeah,
the health implications there, and they're pushing this stuff.
Yes, that's. I think a lot of people may be oblivious to just how electrified we are in general, and then they want to add more to that. So, it's gambling with safety, in spite of everything they say about safety.
Well, so, talking about how public hearings, public meetings, studies, impact studies should be done before you do things. Tell me what you think about this medical addiction clinic coming to Guilford.
Medical addiction clinic. Well, I think that definitely needs more publicity, that people need to know that this is... I believe you said the land has been purchased, everything's kind of
Well, let me give you the latest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious where it is right now.
Just to recap for our audience, on November 29th, a neighbor of mine sent me an article from the Connecticut Examiner that talked about an addiction clinic coming to Guilford. First I had heard of it, right? So shortly after that, I sent an email to the town planner, and I said, let me know when the public hearings are going to be held on this. In this Connecticut Examiner article, the first selectman basically said there will be 1 or 2 public hearings.
He definitely seemed to, he implied that, as I was reading through it.
He's since denied that. He said, that's not what I said at all, but the way I read it, and the way you read it...
it certainly seemed like there was going to be something presented.
So anyway, I get this, gotta find it here, but she sent me an email.
The town planner?
This is the town planner. Yeah, if I can find it. Oh, here. The application for 439 Boston Post Road was tabled at the most recent December 6th Planning and Zoning Committee meeting and is a site plan review by ordinance, in parentheses, does not require a public hearing. Medical use is allowed as of right under the newly adopted zoning ordinance PRB3. This is something that was pushed through on September 20th. Now, I went back and I looked at the minutes and the meeting on the video. No mention of an addiction clinic here. And then she goes on to say, additionally, within the new ordinance, there is no mechanism for the Planning and Zoning Commission to make this application a public hearing item. No public hearings from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I started copying, after I got this, I started copying all the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, all the members of the Guilford Board of Selectmen, the town attorney, the first selectman, everybody, including the town planner. And I said, we need to have public hearings on this. You need to do this before you approve site plan review for this property, which was scheduled for January 3rd. So it was a Zoom meeting, and I watched it, and they refused to have a public hearings on this. In fact, one member of the commission, the only Republican on the commission, he brought up, well, there should be public hearings before we go forward with this. And our first selectman, Matt Hoey, was attending the meeting. He shouted this guy down. There will be no public hearing.
Public hearing.
It is unbelievable. So the other thing I did was I had a Freedom of Information Act request, all right? Do you know what I found out? Oh, well, the property was sold, this property, on July 25th.
Okay.
What I found out through these Freedom of Information Act requests, our first selectman invited this company that's going to run this methadone addiction clinic, methadone clinic, and had a meeting with them. Guess what? Middle of March. The middle of March. And then one of the other things I discovered from this Freedom of Information Act request was APT Corporation Foundation, their engineer submitted a site plan application for this property on May 17th. Now, the property wasn't even sold until July 25th.
Interesting.
And then the zoning regulations were changed on September 20th to allow for medical use, so that there would be no problem with this medical. It's unbelievable, Sally.
Well, and where do the residents of Guilford fit in?
They don't even know about it.
Right, exactly.
They don't even know about it.
Yeah.
I went down to the community center the other day. We're going to have a public meeting on this. The town refused to have a public meeting, the
Sure.
Board of Selectmen, the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we're going to have our own public meeting. So when I was filling out the and this is going to be on the 26th of January
Okay.
at the Guilford Community Center. So when I went down there, the woman who was giving me the application and was there, I said, "Do you know about this addiction clinic?" "No." "I wanted to get my hair cut the other day, and the girl that was giving me a haircut, I said, "Do you know about this addiction clinic?" "No." Nobody knows about
Nobody
this,
knows.
Sally.
Wow.
At the very least, they should have had public notification on this. At the very least, they should have had town meetings on this so there was full transparency and people could weigh in on this. At the very least, they should have done impact studies to see what the result would be on the property values,
Sure.
on
Yep.
crime, on safety,
Sure,
on
would be a big-
traffic,
Yep.
on the environment, on the police and fire budgets,
Yeah.
on the tax
Tax
base,
base, yep.
all of these things. And you know what else? This methadone clinic is going to be 200 feet away from the closest residence, and get this, 400 feet away from a daycare facility.
Wow. Daycare facility.
Is this
Think
unbelievable?
about that. Wow.
And you did a story on this, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah, amassing, the facts so far. But yeah, it's pretty incredible the way they're moving forward. I feel like they're plugging their ears and just trying to plow forward with it. But yeah, that's what you got to do. I think, holding your own meetings when they refuse to, that's practical. It's a way forward.
Well, the way I understand it, they're planning on opening this addiction clinic, this methadone clinic, in May or June. So
I'll be, and we'll follow the story and see what affects it. I'm sure this will be a good impact study when they open it, and they'll find out.
Well,
It'd be interesting to track the data after they make this decision, and that's showing like these people move forward without any public input, and here are the consequences of that.
yeah, I mean,
have to know
this outfit, they're based out of New Haven, and they had a clinic in the hill section of New Haven.
Was it New Hallville, I think?
Well, they wanted to build one in New Hallville, Connecticut,
That's right,
too.
yes, they did.
Which is over on the Hamden town line.
Right.
So, but it was the same scenario as playing out in Guilford. The property was sold without prior notice.
Any notice? Yeah, that's right.
The mayor was all for it. There was no background checks done. It's incredible. But they were able to stop it in New Haven.
Yes. Yep.
That they moved it. They stopped it from being built in New Hallville, which is black residential area of New Haven.
True. Yes.
And they moved it to Long Wharf, which is an industrial area. And that's exactly what they should be doing in Guilford. Not that
Right.
we have an industrial area, but it should be moved someplace else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
But so that's what I'm involved in now.
Yeah.
So you've done other stories about Guilford too, right?
Yes. I've been kind of fascinated with, the school safety crisis up here. They published a few different entries on the Substack, and I thought it's very interesting how the superintendent behaves. Like from his writings, and there's so much you can kind of tell about a person as they, over time, as they keep writing and they do these different things. But I find like he is a very polarizing figure. I talked to one.
This is Dr. Freeman.
Dr. Freeman, yeah. I was talking to one source, and I won't disclose who that source is, but this source says people either love him or hate him. Like there's no middle ground. You either love him or hate him. And I'll say I did a little bit of digging in terms of like superintendent tenure, like how long these guys stay. And what's interesting about Dr. Freeman is that he's been in Guilford for twice as long as the average. So the average time for a superintendent to be in a district is like 6.1 years. So Dr. Freeman has been in Guilford for, let's see, I think he was superintendent in 2011, and I forget offhand who was before him, but so Freeman has been there now, like, so 2024 will be year 13,
13
I think.
years.
So, it's a long time, and you kind of ask yourself, like, well, man, that's a long time. Like, wouldn't he be interested in moving on to another district? But I think he has it so comfortable here where he's at the top.
He makes a lot of money, too.
He makes a lot of money, and he makes a lot of rules. They had, I think, what was it? Maybe the Examiner had an article that Guilford's looking for more funds. Freeman's salary, I think, in 2020 was slashed to about half, like 56% of what he was making in 2019. So
really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
He had made, I want to say, between $250,000 or $260,000 a year, and then when the COVID crisis hit, that took a whack down to I think about $135,000.
Yeah, but he's back where he was. Right?
He is, but I just I don't know. I don't know if he's quite back there, but I find it it's like he's requesting more funds, and I'm like, I'm sure that's going to go for
I think his salary is over $250,000.
Most likely, it is above the other thing I looked up was average superintendent pay in Connecticut, and I do think whatever site I was reading, I'm like, I think that's a low figure. I think most superintendents are upward of $200,000 at least. Yeah. So, but yes, it's a very high price.
But he's got a lot of other things too. Like I know the town pays him pays for his tax sheltered annuity, and that's up near $30,000 a year. The funds to the tune of $30,000 a year. He's got all these stipends. He's got gas allowance. Yeah. So you put everything together, he's over $300,000.
Yes. Yeah. And so that he likes it here in Guilford, and he's been here for 13 years.
He's got a lot of people that like him too.
A lot of people that like him. That's right.
He's the former superintendent of the year.
Oh yes.
In Connecticut.
Yep. Yes, that's correct. Yep, superintendent of the year. I know you had mentioned recently an incident with, that happened at the school, and the equity officer.
Oh, the equity officer. Yeah. There was this guy. His name is Rydell Harrison, and he used to be the superintendent in Reading, Eastern School District. Mm-hmm. And he was making $225,000 a year. Well, the board there kicked him out because of comments he made on Twitter. He basically called everybody a racist if they were a Republican or supported Trump. So they kicked him out. But where does he end up? He ends up here in Guilford with us. Yeah. And he took a part-time position, which pays $25,000 a year, went from $225,000 down to $25,000 as the equity liaison officer. Okay. Yep. So what happened a month or so ago, he was at a meeting at the Guilford High School, and he parked in the wrong place. How that can happen, I don't know, because he's been here for 2 years. So he parked in the student parking lot, which is a ways away from the school. And when he came out, there was a note on his car which supposedly said, "You're in the wrong parking spot," and used the N-word. So Freeman, sent a letter out to the Guilford school community and let everybody know about it. I thought he was going to make a bigger deal out of it than he did, because he's jumped on incidents like that before.
He has, yeah. Yep. I think that's kind of what's also interesting, is that he seems to really focus in on ones that he wants to focus on. There was that one incident with I think we call it the gas mask
Oh,
incident.
yes.
With, the kids wearing a gas mask to school every day. And so...
That didn't fit the bill for
Yeah,
him,
it didn't really fit
narrative.
what he was, doing with that. So I think it was the I don't know if it was the anti-defamation, the anti-Semitism, something like that. They had a Twitter photo, because I think the students had been told to erase, whatever photos they had of this kid wearing the gas mask.
They were called into the principal's office,
Right.
And told to delete the pictures of this.
Yeah, that's right. But they, whatever outlet or organization, they had a couple of pictures on there, and for all of the the tension now between Israel and Gaza and all of that, it just was like, well, I mean, I guess gas mask happened before then, but if you're supposedly a school that's wanting to be a safe environment for everyone, why why kind of like quelch the one incident and highlight another? It's maybe an inequity of treatment of different incidences. They should treat them all the same.
Well, you can imagine a kid wearing a gas mask to school, and he was allowed to wear it all day long. And he was overheard. Someone asked him, "Why are you wearing the gas mask?" And he said, basically, so I can kill Jews. That's what he said. And when a resident in our town, his son heard that, and he filed a police report. And the result of that was they basically told this kid and his father, who is a former police officer in Guilford, that you filed a false report. I mean, it was unbelievable.
That's the two-tier system of justice right there. It's really, it's sad.
Well, you mentioned October 7th, the invasion of Israel by Hamas. Well, Freeman came out with a letter to the Guilford school community. He called himself a leader, and he says, I've been struggling whether to comment on this or not. This was 14 days out, or 17 days after the invasion.
I think it was, it was a while.
And he basically drew a moral equivalency between Hamas and the genocide that they perpetrated on that day against Israel, and what's happening in Gaza. The problem was Israel hadn't even invaded Gaza at that point.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're aware that the Greater Education Council of Connecticut had sent a cease and desist letter to the Guilford Board of Education?
Yes. Yep.
And basically, it was Freeman. He has instituted what he calls his Equity and Social Justice Initiative, and which is now called Portrait of a Graduate. And he
My name changed.
the point was he had done this illegally. And because he was emphasizing this Portrait of a Graduate so much, they had ignored school safety or state school safety statutes.
And that's correct, yes.
By doing it.
Yeah.
The board never acknowledged our letter. This was back on September 6th.
Yeah, early
September 6th. However, Dave Holman wrote a letter to the editor, a 300-word letter to the editor, summarizing this stuff, whatever I could put into 300 words. That Dr. Freeman responded to. And he responded to it by sending a letter to the Guilford public school community using the taxpayer-funded communication system.
Sure.
So somebody sent that to me because they won't let me get on that. I don't have any kids in the system. And so I asked him, I said, you need to let me respond in kind to that. And he refused to let me respond in kind, either by sending me the email list that he sent his letter to, or by sending a letter that my response to everybody in the Guilford school community.
Sure.
It is quite stunning.
Yeah, he does like control, and especially control of the narrative. and it's, whatever Freeman says, that's like he has it's a self-perception that he's untouchable, invincible. It is incredible.
And the board goes along with him lockstep.
Yes.
And
so.
I believe you tried to help us put out a survey to the teachers in Guilford at one time.
Seeing if they would respond to things.
It was on safety. It was on school safety.
It was on school safety. I think, I don't think anything ever came of that, worth a try.
Well, what was stunning about that, Sally, was, you know how many responses we got to our school survey?
I didn't think there were any responses to it.
0.
Yeah, right.
How's that happen? How's that happen?
Well, there was one of the other stories I did was on the, this is a nice segue, to the school systems, their internet will block emails that they don't want to get through. I mean, in some cases.
Well, you're right. They blocked the ones that I sent out, but we had divvied up the different schools different people sent them out. So mine were all blocked. But
that's right.
Other people who sent it out to different schools, there were not blocked. So maybe we sent out 600 surveys, and the ones that I did were maybe 200. So 400 went out, but not one response. Not one response.
Yeah, and I don't know either if some of that is like I still think like if you're a teacher in the school system that disagrees with Freeman's narrative, but maybe at the moment you have nowhere else to go, it's like, do you risk responding to something like that, or do you come forward and say anything for fear of like retaliation? I'm not sure what the climate is in the schools as far as I think there are teachers, there've got to be teachers that aren't happy with what's going on, but I think they're very, they're kind of suppressed.
I mentioned Portrait of a Graduate before, and it's just the latest version of his Equity and Social Justice Initiative. But what it consists of is 6 woke competencies: being a global citizen, being an empathetic individual, but one of them is being a critical thinker. So he pretends to want to have all different points of view, but in reality he doesn't. He limits it. You play the game. You go along with his Equity and Social Justice Initiative.
Yeah.
Or you stay silent, I guess.
I think that's that, and that is one of the fundamental differences. Kind of getting back to the Hillsdale explanation. Like the old school progressives, they were at least for free speech. They supported the traditional family, and when it came to environmentalism, it's a little bit of a side tangent, but they believed in conservation as opposed to what do they call that? Prioritizing nature over human activity and that kind of thing. But yeah, the suppression of free speech has unfortunately been a hallmark of I think schools from K to 12 and past that, as we're seeing with universities.
Yeah, but look at what's happening as a result of this. I mean, go back to October 7th. All these protests on college campuses now in support of Hamas and the Palestinians. I mean, this is what they're being taught. So now it's down in the lower grades, K through 12. And they're teaching them one narrative, and this is what we're getting. Right.
Well, and I mean, it's maybe self-evident, but the kids in turn are not learning to grapple with different ideas and actually think them out. Someone said, maybe it was Herbert Hoover, I forget, like, he may have said, like, people don't tend to think when they're in a group. Like, when they're in a crowd, you feel together, but you're not using your critical thinking faculties. So I feel like school to kind of condense it down to what's happening today is that, yeah, you've got basically groups of kids, and they are being taught to feel together. And there's no real thought behind it. I mean, we can look and see that, but, the kids are stuck.
Right. And if you don't feel together the same way, you're a racist, basically.
Right, yeah. They'll come up with a label for you if you have the wrong feeling. That's kind of the way it goes.
We're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Do you see this going on in other school systems around Connecticut?
Yeah, I think it's widespread. And I think also it's because I'm not sure how aware parents are in general, even parents who may not be particularly political or something like that. Their kid comes home. I think COVID was kind of a wake up as to what was going on in the schools, but I think it is definitely going on in public school districts across Connecticut, and it's just kind of a matter of like, how bad is it? I think some districts are worse than others, but it's a difficult metric to gauge, though, just because I don't know that there's a whole lot of transparency, comparing metrics between school districts. I mean, there's state resources at the top in terms of academic performance. Like you can look at a given school district and watch their standards, from year to year, and maybe that would be, worth looking into. Is like, okay, we implemented this portrait of a graduate in year X, and so then every year that portrait of a graduate goes on, what are the academic metrics? And maybe
there are no metrics to portrait of a graduate.
Well, but so like if you track academic metrics, but then you have social metrics, and so they might be going like this, Social metrics might be skyrocketing, but I heard this is a true story. So my retail job, I work in the mornings at a bakery, bacon's meat, and
do you bake or do?
No, I don't bake. Well, I do bake, but this one, my coworker was talking about an interview that I think was a celebrity. Was the gist of it was that this celebrity or whoever said she thought Newton invented gravity. Okay, not discovered gravity, invented it.
That's like Al Gore inventing the internet.
Yeah. So he, so this girl, she turns to her boyfriend and she's like, right, and somebody said, oh yeah, we didn't have gravity before Newton invented, and this is American educate, it's like you just shake your head and you go, wow, I hope she's not representative of a majority of kids, but frankly, we don't know, going across, but yes.
But would you say Guilford is worse than most of these other
I think
districts?
given where Freeman is, I think it's it seems to be more tightly controlled for sure, and that I think the what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe the force of how much they're teaching this stuff in the classroom is likely, I'm going to say, above average, for the state of Connecticut. But yeah, when you have a closed system, then there's no room for any other opinion. It's so then you get out in the real world. Like we're seeing that conflict of it's like, well, it's not really the way the world works. But yeah, I think Guilford is very closed, and and these ideas have been proliferating maybe for longer, just because Freeman's been in there longer.
So, I mean, we've sent him. Has he ever responded to you? You've reached out to him, right?
I've reached out to him a few times. I can't recall. I don't believe he's responded to me directly. Nope. I'm hoping that he's seeing the Substack entries, but it's one thing as a publisher, I do try to reach out, to the other side to give them a fair chance. Like, even if I'm pretty convinced that they're not going to respond, and there's a few ways of putting that in either refuse to comment or decline to comment or whatever, but but I have reached out to him before.
All right, reaching out to people. I should have asked you this before, but let's get back to this methadone clinic coming to Guilford.
Sure.
Now, you reached out to some people for comments on that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I reached out to the first selectman. He hasn't responded. I reached out to the CEO of APT Foundation also. And for her, I was curious what the proposed uses of the methadone. I mean, I guess it's said to be a methadone clinic, but its proponents are claiming that it's more than that, that there's going to be a variety of services. So, I reached out to her and said, can you speak to what services are going to be offered? I haven't heard back from her, but,
And how long ago was that?
Let's see. I think I reached out maybe just over a week ago for the first time, and then maybe just a couple of days ago, I reached out again. So haven't heard anything back, but, playing fair. So, yeah.
It's...
and she may not respond, and that's, she may think that she's going to dig herself a deeper hole, if she comments, but I don't know.
We're certain for our meeting on the 26th, we're certainly going to reach out to all of them. Yeah, the Board of Selectmen, the P&Z, the town planner, first selectman, and and the APT people, including Lynn Madden, and invite them to come. We'll see if they come. Because they've really haven't been in front of anybody asking hard questions.
No. And this is an issue that has some hard questions. You got to do that. So.
Yeah, we're also hoping to get some people from New Haven who have had experience with the methadone clinics next to them, and what the result has been, and what kind of trouble it has caused, and get them to talk to.
Because I think the foundation operates five clinics total, and I don't know that all of them have been as maybe controversial, but I think you had also mentioned, though, that they had, was it the U.S. Department of Justice had some, I think it had to do with Medicare billing. So, I mean, in addition to, it's like, okay, so nobody's saying anything about where the clinics are located, but then they had something with, Medicare billing, but I'm not sure if that was
this was back in 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
I didn't find this article. Somebody sent it to me.
Oh, okay.
But I forwarded it on to all the Board of Selectmen and the Planning and Zoning people.
Yeah.
They fraudulently overbilled Connecticut Medicare.
Okay, that's right.
And they had to reimburse roughly $880,000.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, well, that information alone should have been enough for them to say, hey, let's wait a minute, let's do some investigations on this, including, what has happened when they put up a methadone clinic in these different communities, and what the people thought of it. That one article about Newhallville referenced their location in the hill section of New Haven, and it wasn't pleasant,
Yeah.
I know personally, I worked in New Haven on a street called Wallace Street, which is an industrial area, and right next door to the company I worked for was a methadone clinic, and there were prostitutes walking into our doors all day long. All day long.
All day long. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's, there's no, it's like no real way to describe what, to people that have, aren't familiar with it. It's like, I'd be curious to know if the town officials have ever heard of that, or ever had any kind of like practical life lessons about that. I don't know.
Well, Hoey himself said in that Connecticut Examiner article that he's had people who have struggled with alcoholism in his family.
Sure.
So he wants, he says Guilford is a welcoming community. that scares me to death. That
Yeah.
scares me to death.
Yeah.
You know, are we going to be a?
I mean, you can welcome a lot of things.
Are we going to be a sanctuary city now?
Well, maybe it's a great question.
You know,
Yeah.
and I know
Welcome a lot of things, a lot of people.
that in the school system, they're pushing all this gender affirming care for kids, as young as kindergarten.
Yeah.
They're pushing it.
Yeah.
So is that what he means by a welcoming community?
Yeah, it's a question worth asking. I think it's very ambiguous. Everything that these people say is very ambiguous. There's no definition. Welcoming. It's like, well, you can be. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an off the wall example, but you can welcome prisoners. You can welcome addicts. All kinds of things.
Come on in.
Come on in. The water's fine.
Come on in. I say put this methadone clinic right next to his house. You can be welcoming.
Or you put a sign on the door, welcoming. Matt Hoey welcomes you. So I don't know.
Well, how can people get in touch with you? How can people subscribe to your newsletter?
Well, I'd say the easiest way is to visit the website. It's kind of all there. It's www, or just, I think these days, I don't know if the triple W is necessary, but seriously, sometimes I just type it in. But it's all lowercase. It's thectltribune.com. And it's got a little bit about me. It's got past issues of the paper and a couple of the Substacks that I publish. And if you want to make a donation, it's also got a tab on there for that.
And they can submit articles to you.
Yes. Yep. It has my contact info on there. So I'm on a Proton address, and I do keep sources confidential. You don't have to go on the record. I have found sometimes some valuable resources are off record. Well,
one thing we didn't get into, it just mentioned it, is you've done a lot of stories on Hamden.
Yes.
Hamden School.
Yep.
And you have a secret source there called the Albatross.
I
right?
do. I will say this individual came to me. It was someone else who knew of the Albatross, and so I realized this individual came, talked to me at great personal risk. Albatross is also a polarizing figure, I think, among the teachers, and some people, love what Albatross writes, and they're like, yeah, this is spot on, and other people don't. But yes, I have kept that individual.
And she's still functioning or he's still, whatever.
Yeah.
The person is still functioning as the Albatross.
Yes. Yep. Let's see. Probably when Albatross first, I published, a work out there, and I'll say it was one of the. I can see the view count on my WordPress site, and so Albatross's article was one of the first that was out there, and I watched that view count climb from 1,100, 1,200. It got past 2,000.
Really?
25. It just kept going, and I got to say, as a pretty green, publisher or journalist, I was afraid that Hamden was going to call me up and be like, "Who is this person?" So and that's something that I say, even if law enforcement came to me and demanded to know who the source is, it's like I cannot disclose that. So I'm it.
That's it. They can put me in jail, right?
They can put me in jail. Yeah.
Well, that's what you got to do. But
Sure.
Anyway, you get an idea of the great person Sally is, and the great patriot she is, and we need more people like Sally. So please go to her website. Please support her. Please submit articles to her. She's been great to us in Guilford, and thank you so much, Sally, for being here today.
A pleasure, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Okay.